don't stretch cold muscle. Okay,
So when we go to the gym before, because we all
warm up, meaning
first.
like do a light jog, a light walk, ride the bike.
Okay.
So and I always try to educate people like in the form of analogies, right? And so meaning, okay, if you take a rubber band, and you go put it in the freezer, right? And so you take that rubber band out the freezer and you pull it back, it's gonna
pop,
right? You take that same rubber band and you put it in the microwave for 20 seconds. That rubber band is gonna stretch. It's gonna stretch and expand as far as it can. So I would tell people, don't stretch cold muscle.
Came here in 2007, right in the middle of the crazy crisis. If your heart is not into it, do not do it. That's what I always tell them.
If you're making around 70K, look to be able to qualify for a home somewhere around 250, 275 in that bracket.
Onions and juices and all that, and put some lemon and onion and you make him drink it, right?
And Alex, all my listings need a video. All of them.
Hey guys, welcome back for another episode here at Let's Keep It Real Now. I am Danielle Bilumbu, your host, and I'm here with
Abu Jabi with AMP London. How y'all doing?
Great. So we stretch when we wake up, when we yawn, and even maybe after we work out. And that's very important.
It is. It is. Stretching is a very important key. It's like having breakfast in the morning.
And then what about if stretching was as important as healing pain, reversing aging, or even unlocking your performance in life in general, or even releasing stress?
Yeah.
You know. So today's guest is somebody very special who owns the Art of Stretch, and we are here with Ryan Terry, and he's gonna go and explain us what's the benefit of stretching, not just like this, like really what is the benefits, because it's not just the muscle coach, but he's here to help you shape your mind and truly really understand how can stretch can help you and really heal you and get you where you would like. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
So before we start, I just want to try a little experience. So whatever you are right now, you probably, I don't know if you are on the treadmill, walking in your car, or on a chair. Try to see if you can touch your toe. Stretch that and see if you can reach your toe. If you can and you're having a hard time or it's a real struggle for a simple movement, just like when you used to be a little kid, you used to be very easy. But now as an adult, how easy was that? But if you can, that means you really need him. Okay, so everybody listen up and let's pay attention. If you can touch your toe, we need Ryan today. So before we start, tell us a little bit more about you.
Okay, well, I guess let me see. Wow, where should I start my story? So I was born at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. My father, when he got out of the military, we moved to Omaha, Nebraska, and I was age 2 to 7. But Ohio is where I claim home. So I grew up in a small steel mill town outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Steubenville, Ohio.
Okay.
And so after, and I was always involved with sports, from motocross early on in Nebraska to moving to Ohio, and the kids were playing football in the streets. And I fell in love with football, but I've ran track, played baseball, basketball, wrestling, and all that. So I was always a quote unquote gym rat, and I was in the gym. And then when I didn't get to start until my senior year in college, so I wasn't the big 4 or 5 star athlete that could go wherever they wanted. And I was lucky to get a scholarship at Tennessee State in Nashville. So I was there for a year, and I went down there and I started as a true freshman. And I thought I was big time, and so I wanted to play. And I grew up in the Midwest, so I wanted to play in the Big Ten. And so I ended up transferring and walking on to the University of Iowa, where I later I earned a scholarship after being there a year. So I guess I was, transferring before, most kids, like the way transferring is today, it's just it's nothing. Yeah. But it's life was funny. I got hurt my senior year in high school, and which kind of probably killed my recruiting. In college, I got hurt my senior year, both ankle injuries, and so that kind of killed my draft status. So I was a free agent with the Arizona Cardinals, but I went out and I made the team. I was fortunate enough to play the Arizona Cardinals for 3 seasons. I went on to play in Canada for 5 more. I played in Toronto for 2, Edmonton for 2, and one in Montreal. And afterwards, I worked in once I retired, I worked in pharmaceutical sales, and pharmaceutical sales is great, and there's a lot of things that I learned from pharmaceutical sales, but I just felt like that I wasn't doing enough. Mm-hmm. I feel like I wasn't. I wanted to be more hands-on, and stretching kind of found me at the right time. I had a great friend that introduced me to assisted stretch therapy. And when I went to my first certification, I kept going to more certifications and kept learning. And I just kind of saw a vision, man. Like for 12 years ago, I'm seeing the vision of assisted stretch therapy being this huge thing, and now it's slowly becoming. When people told me that you said, "Man, Ryan, you're crazy. People are not going to pay you to stretch them, and there's no market for it." But I said, the professional athletes are already doing it. The professional dancers are already doing it. The public just needs educated. So once the public gets educated, they'll follow. They'll follow
true
behind.
Because I really never heard about it, and oftentimes see on the field with athletes, like I always thought it was a physical therapist that just come and help them stretch, but actually.
Oh yeah. Teams are employing people to do it. For the team, or athletes are employing individual therapists. And I give an example. So Tom Brady in his book, everybody know and loves Tom Brady, right? Mm-hmm. So the question was posed to Tom Brady, says, what are you doing to prolong your career? Like, your career's lasting so much longer. Is it the weight training? And Tom Brady basically summarizes that everyone is doing the weight training. He said he felt like the stretch therapist that he brought in is what's helping prolong his career.
Yeah, because I feel like the weight that you stress your muscle consistently when you do all this effort, all this movement, yeah. But you relax and help to move all the toxin away and just make
yes.
everything, all the circulation goes better.
Yeah, right? and different people need flexibility for different things, right? Mm-hmm. And this is what I mean. So if you look at I'll always explain things in analogy. So if you take the dancer is what I would call like a 10, like a ballet dancer is a 10 as far as flexibility goes. Mm-hmm. And say a power lifter, they're a 1. They're super duper tight. Their body is what we call it's stable. It's so now I always tell people you don't want to be either one of them, right? Because on the bottom end of no flexibility, you tear muscles. You hear about guys, tearing their biceps, tearing their pecs and triceps, different things like that. Now, out on the other end, the dancer is what we call hypermobile. Okay. So they're super flexible. They're almost to the point where they need more stability. But the dancers oftentimes they do need the flexibility because they need to be able to pull their leg up above their head or different things, and it looks beautiful. At the same time, there's a lot of injuries that come with that, like the shoulders coming out of place, knees sublexing out of out of place.
They're too loose.
They're too loose. So really, what I say is, you want to kind of slide in that 5 to 8 range. You kind of want to be in there, and that way you have enough stability, for your body to take on force, but also you have enough, mobility and flexibility to where you can move and not hurt yourself.
Which sport or athlete are usually in the 5 range? Because you give us the ballet dancer and the other one.
So here's what I would say. In athletes that I've worked with, basketball players are normally the tightest they have a lot of endurance, okay. but they're normally the tightest of guys. I would say of your major sports, baseball players tend to be a little bit more flexible, but I think they understand it a little bit more. Like, a pitcher has to have loose hips. It always cracks me up when I hear somebody talk about someone's arm. Man, he got or quarterback has such a strong arm. Man, he can throw the ball 70 yards. He throws the ball, 90 plus miles per hour. But I guarantee you, if you go look at that player, and you it's their hips, like right, it's their hips. So they're actually torquing from here, and it's coming up through, as opposed to a person having a strong arm and they just use their arm. They'll tear their arm to pieces.
When you only use your arm, you can only go so far. But when you use your entire body to make the movement, that's why you're
right. And you want to get it's almost like it's almost like your hips, your thoracic spine, and so, and then the arm is actually the last thing.
Just like the golfer too.
Just like
and tennis players.
Same thing. And I always tell people as far as that goes, you know, you always have, like, a lot of people stretch, but it's like how or what should I stretch? And you know, and it's kind of leading into, you know, the glute muscles, right? Because I'll see people stretch their hamstrings. I make an argument that people stretch the hamstring more than anything, their hamstrings and quads, but they're always hurting their hamstring. So I always tell people it's more to it than the hamstring, and it's your glute. Like, you know, if that glute is strong and flexible, everything else for the most part is going to follow. It's going to follow. Yep.
So when you started at the beginning, were you your own client at first? How hard was it to get yourself going? Because you say it's been, 12 years?
Well, yeah, and then too, a part of my origins story, and I'll try to make it as quick as possible. But so the guys in this room may know the athlete I'm talking about. You may know, but so say, do you know Bo Jackson? You know Bo Jackson, right? So okay, so my first trainer as a professional athlete was a guy by the name of Mac Newton, and I believe Mac Newton he just passed. Late, 2024. So Mac Newton, he was the first person that made me understand the importance of flexibility. So in our pro class out in Arizona, the first hour, the heat was turned up to like 100 degrees, and in the first hour was stretching. Then we worked out. Then he gave a motivational talk. The reason why I bring up Mac Newton was he's the guy that trained Bo Jackson back from his hip injury. That's when Mac Newton got really, really famous. And so myself, being the inquisitive guy, you know, I asked Mac Newton one time in the off season. I says, Mac, why do we do all this stretching? And I wanted to know why. Right? It wasn't that I wasn't going to do it, but I wanted to do it. And Mac, he called me RT. He says, RT, come sit in my office. So he sits me down in his office. This is 1996, right? So and he says to me, man, I remember this running back coming here from the University of Iowa. He's talking about me, right? And he said, this guy was having hamstring pulls, ankle sprains, tight growing. He says, has he been having those issues since he's been working with me? I was like, no. I said, no, Mac. I said he hasn't. So now this is 1996, man. This is how far Mac Newton's mind was ahead, and he was like a 7th, 8th degree Taekwondo world, two-time world champion. He was always, flexibility work. So Mac shows me data back in 1996. He says, Ryan, how many athletes do you think follow a strict strength and conditioning program? At the time, I was like, we all do, Mac. We have to, right? So then you kind of find out that not everybody lifts weights, but the data was about 75 to 80%. And now I understand this data very well. And he said, so then his next question was, how many athletes do you think follow a strict, speed and conditioning program? I said, Mac, I thought those numbers would be closer to 75, 80%. So they were 55%. And the last question he asked me, he says, well, he says, how many athletes do you think follow a strict flexibility and mobility program? So he's the first trainer that I have as a professional athlete. So I'm like, 50%. It was 9%.
Wow.
Right? So then Mac Newton goes on to tell me, he says, Ryan, he says, look, over the next 15, 20 plus years, and here we are. He said athletes are going to get bigger, stronger, and faster due to technology. He said the trade-off is that they're going to be tearing up their Achilles, tearing up their knees, tearing up their groins, tearing up their hips. And he says, and this conversation meant nothing to me in 1996. He says, Ryan, whoever can get athletes to stretch, he says they're going to be rich. He said because the public is going to follow. And if so Mac Newton was that person that made me understand. Yeah. And I was the type of guy, I've eased up a little bit now in my older years. Yeah. But most of my friends was always saying, if you're going to the gym with Ryan, you better drive your own car. because you're gonna be there for 2+ hours because I'm stretching,
all day.
working. Yeah, I'm doing the whole thing. So I'm gonna kidnap you if you go, if you come to the gym, to the gym with me. Yeah.
So when you first got started, did your friends and family members, when you stated that you were going to be doing stretching, did they think you were crazy? What were their thoughts?
Man, it was. I had a lot of my friends told me that I was absolutely crazy. Man, you're gonna walk away from pharmaceutical sales to pursue this.
That's a big transition.
Yeah, and I was just, and I don't know. I like to think that I think ahead as well. And I saw the vision. And I have conversations with people, and I says, like, even us now, I says, watch from where you're at now. Watch 5 years from now, 10 years from now, how much you're now aware of stretching and how much it's growing. I said there's a huge market out there in the public. I said the athletes are already doing it. Professional dancers are doing it. I said it's just a matter. I said what has to happen now is the public has to get educated. I'm still running into people who never heard of any kind of stretch therapy, whatsoever. Yeah. So that lets me know how great the market is for this type of modality.
Yeah.
And who are the people you think they need? But before we get there, for those that still having some doubt, where stretching is something natural that we're normally supposed to do, right?
Yeah. So,
where does it start?
So, man, it starts from the time the baby comes out the womb. What? And I always tell what does a baby do when they come out of their mother's womb? They spread out.
They were
right?
practicing in the womb, but there was no space.
And
now they're like,
yeah, and then too, it's funny because I always tell people, like, I'm a studier of movement, so I love to sit and watch, like, lions and tigers and bears, but not only that, like antelope, all these different animals, because you learn so much from them as far as movement goes, right? And and if I go take a walk or jog at Memorial Park, I'm studying how people move. But if you look at animals in the wild, they stretch before they get up and start going. You'll see a tiger or a dog or something like that pull back and stretch and then and then start to move. And so so it's like, and then I always say with if you take a baby and also too with that baby, it's like they start stretching from the get-go. And what you'll see or what you'll find is over time, we teach ourselves not to stretch. It's like he was talking earlier about, like, man, I don't take time to stretch. Yeah. We actually teach ourselves not to do it, and so we start to get tighter and start to have more issues because we're not stretching. But you should.
Where do you think the breakdowns start happening in people's life? Is it as the kid or teenager, adult? That's where people stop. You have an idea?
I think it happens. I think it happens with adulthood. If you ask me, because if you see a baby, man, they squat with their butt will go all the way down to the ground, and even most kids just move, like, man, they just move, they tumble, everything. But it's right to me, kind of like when I say adulthood, it's almost like that kid crossing over from teenage years, like, into adulthood. And it's like maybe due to work, you're taking on a job or whatnot, but we stop moving. And then you start a life of becoming stiffer because you're not moving.
Yeah. I think like for me personally, it's just being educated on what stretching does.
Yes.
So for a lot of people, especially men, you'll think when you go into the gym, you want to feel pain, you want to feel the weights. So like for me, I'll go in there, I'll stretch, my legs, my arms, I do my little back. But then after that, I want to feel the weights, and then when I'm walking out of the gym, feel like I actually did something.
Yeah. So
stretching, when you think about stretching, you don't think about it as an actual act.
Yeah.
But
I'll tell you. So I'll tell you this. So stretching has more to do with muscles, right? And then too, even my form of assisted stretch therapy, I call it neuromuscular connective stretch. So and you see the first thing out there is neural, so like nerves and the nervous system. And so here's a question I always ask people just to see what their answer will be. Do either one of you know how many nerves there are in the body?
No, I know millions, but I don't know.
I guess.
Yes, millions. 1
Nerves
million.
in the body, I guess. I say 8,000.
Okay, how about if I told you
Oh,
guys?
more than
How about
that.
if I told you guys 7 trillion?
Dang!
7 trillion.
Well, you beat me up right there.
7 trillion nerves.
Because I was
Said
thinking in my
8,000.
hand alone, I feel everything, so I know there is million, but
Yeah, and
No idea.
you know, and
I said
yeah.
8,000.
So yeah,
oh my God, I feel sorry for you.
but you know, but
You really need to stretch.
yeah, but you know, but years ago, I would have probably, you know, I tell people you can Google it. It's right there, but it lets you know how important the nervous system is to stretch. You know, because it's kind of like where I always tell people it's always funny. I could get you guys on the table. And you all, and because number one, the first time I would be stretching with you guys, you don't know what I'm going to do, so it's kind of like your body's in fight mode. Everything, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then two, it's like where I got to get your nervous system relaxed and in tune. You know, to me, because I always tell people, man, it's like we have somebody that we know in common. So say for example, Danielle might have already decided, man, Ryan's a nice guy, right? But I can get Danielle on my table, and she might be saying I'm a nice guy, but her nervous system is like, man, Danielle, I don't know who this dude is. So you know, I got to get to know him for myself.
Yeah.
And you know, and that's really the way the body behaves. But it's like in getting that person to relax and you know, and just kind of get in tune. It's sort of like they'll relax, and then the stretching experience is much more enjoyable.
Yeah.
You know, and then two, you know, I know when we were kids, you have your buddy stretching you, and he's pushing you, and you're shaking while the person is stretching you, and that's not how you want to stretch anybody, because that's actually telling the nervous system to protect itself, and you want the nervous system to relax so you can take someone deeper into the stretch and get more range of motion.
Yeah.
And who are the people or the client that you have in the general public? What people, which type of health or chronic disease they have that you have seen so far?
So I have a wide range of clients. I would say probably the youngest clients I've ever had were 9-year-old gymnasts, right? Because you know. So,
they're very.
So yeah, and then you know, well, gymnasts it's a very mature sport. What I mean by that, at 15 or 16, you're on the back end of your career as a gymnast.
Really?
Yeah. Like Simone Biles is like
She's a trailblazer, huh?
she's like LeBron in terms of her longevity in the
So
sport.
she's what, 25?
Yeah, I mean, she, you know, but I know for a gymnast, she's way out there on the older end. Like she's a phenomenon in that community.
But she keep killing it though.
She does, but she is the exception. And so saying that, so those have been some of my youngest, and I would say probably some of my old. I have two 94-year-olds.
Oh wow.
Right now, of course, your athletes and your seniors, it's a totally different way that you stretch them and move their body. Meaning that if I stretched a 94-year-old the way I stretched an athlete, they would say, man, get this crazy guy out of here and don't ever bring him back, right? At the same time, if I was stretching an athlete the way I'm stretching a 94-year-old, they would say, like, man, don't bring that guy back. I didn't even feel anything, you know. But it's very different, very different needs. And I have, and I would say too, this probably goes more into the senior community, but I always tell people, and I guess hear me out for somebody who says I wish a disease on someone, but I say thank God for Parkinson's, because the first lady I've ever stretched with Parkinson's, it made me do a whole lot of research into Parkinson's, and I just saw there was all this data on how stretching could help Parkinson's patients, and I currently have a couple that I work with now, and then just some other one, like pre and postnatal women, because women going through those 3 trimesters, their body is going through some changes, their body is trying to prepare them to let a baby come down through the canal, and so with that they get very uncomfortable, very very stiff, and need to relax, and that's something that we try to help with. And as far as that education goes, I'm trying to get women I'm trying to find them in their first trimester, as opposed to them coming
the
in the third trimester
Yeah,
where they're just miserable, and to just let them have a lot more pleasant pleasant experience.
Does stretching help with delivery? Does it help them with delivery?
It does, and essentially, even in a way they prop ladies' legs up, they're putting them in a stretch position.
True.
So it's like it's right it's right it's right there it's right there it's right there in plain sight.
Yeah. So do you think for the audience we could try to show them like some beginner stretches that somebody would be able to do?
So
if they were visiting the gym, just some basic stretches.
I mean, we could
to start out a workout.
We could do and even too, and we can do that, or I'm looking at where you have a lot of people at work all day, right? And they're
On the computer.
and they're on that computer. They're in that chair, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's even some things that they can do sitting right at the desk, and you guys hear me talk about. I'm always talking about the glutes, right? And probably some of the basic stretches that a person can do sitting at work, is number one is just crossing their leg while they're sitting. Right, and this right here, you're starting that stretch into the glute. Yep. And now from there, and these are not, and I say these are not stretches where I say like somebody's killing you or whatever like that. And then the second part, so you can sit here for like 30 seconds. Then I tell people, okay, pull your knee into your body, which increases that stretch into that glute muscle, right? And then just pushing that knee away, just open that hip up. So these are like great glute stretches and hip stretches that someone can do while sitting. Mm-hmm. Also too, while sitting, just nice little twist. Nice little twist here. And turning the other side. And I'm kind of running through these kind of quick. But these are things that people can do right at their desk. Another one, while your back, these chairs are kind of moving, but your back is on the chair, mm-hmm. and you're just pressing straight out, just getting that upper back, just pressing away. You guys feel that in your upper back?
Tuck your tummy.
Yep.
30 seconds.
About 30 second holds, and then you can do what I call shoulder shifts. So you're just shifting from side to side. It's nice and easy. Okay, and then we'll keep it moving up like into the neck, right? So the neck, you can go ear to shoulder, just letting it go to the side, ear to shoulder. Okay, and then we're just going to do a couple of nice gentle turns, like as though we're trying to look over our shoulder. So you're just turning, like you're trying to look over your shoulder, and the other side. And the last neck stretch, which is really for your neck or cervical spine, is just doing a chin tuck. So when I tell people to do a chin tuck, most people duck their head down, but it's almost like you want to, as if I was pushing your chin back to you, like that. Tucking that chin. Yep. Tucking that chin. And those are some of the things that you can, those are some of the things that you can do just while sitting.
Okay.
Now, getting on the floor in a gym, there's a lot more, modifications that you can do. But I tell people all the time, man, learn how to stretch your glutes. Yeah. Learn how to. I always tell people, man, if you only had 5 minutes, I tell athletes all the time, only have 5 minutes, stretch your glutes. Yeah. Because that's actually, and even too, stretching some of those muscles, you're going to get a little bit of hamstring in there anyway. Yeah. You're going to get a little bit of low back. But when people tell me they have like a tight low back or tight hamstrings, it's like most of the time I already know, like, man, they got some tight glutes. Yeah.
Do's and don'ts with stretching.
So I would say, first of all, don't stretch cold muscle. Okay. So
when we go to the gym because we all
warm up, meaning like do a light jog, a light walk, ride the bike.
Okay.
So and I always try to educate people like in the form of analogies, right? And so meaning, okay, if you take a rubber band and you go put it in the freezer, mm-hmm. right? And so you take that rubber band out the freezer and you pull it back, it's going
Yeah, it's gonna pop.
right? You take that same rubber band and you put it in the microwave for 20 seconds. That rubber band is going to stretch.
Melt.
It's going to stretch and expand as far as it can. So I would tell people, don't stretch cold muscle. Okay. I would say a good do. Always stretch when you're done. That's the time. Like most time on the front end, you do more dynamic stuff. So I always tell people, and I'm actually getting ready to do a video. I'm going to actually do a video here in the next week or two, showing a dynamic warm up, and I want it for athletes, and because I always tell athletes, especially you see athletes being like cute little 5, 6-year-old, 8-year-old kids, they get out there and they just run, right? But their body's not developed enough to hurt themselves. You start getting where you are getting faster as a kid, and you get out there and you haven't warmed that body up, you're gonna hurt yourself. You're gonna hurt yourself. So I would tell people, don't stretch cold muscle, and do stretch, but do it after a workout.
And how often somebody should stretch on the daily? Like, I'm not an athlete. I'm just a simple person. So
I'll break it down into a more simpler form for people, right? And just in data that I've seen, every muscle should be stretched 5 minutes per week.
Okay.
Right.
5 minutes per week.
Right. Every muscle.
So meaning, like for example, you may actually say if you hold a hamstring stretch, say 3 times for 30 seconds. It's a minute and a half, right? So if you stretch your hamstring at least three times a week, you're pretty much getting there. So it's and I break it down that way just to make it into simple terms, because you start telling someone, man, you should stretch 30 minutes, 60 minutes, and things of that nature. They kind of get like overwhelmed in their mind. But saying you should stretch every muscle group for a total of 5 minutes a week, then you kind of meet the criteria to maintain your body.
Okay, so does the muscle really store trauma?
Yeah.
In general? Have you meet some client there you can really feel it?
Oh yeah. So like trauma, the way I would describe it, like trauma it's almost like you're trying, or your body's trying, and speaking of is trying to protect itself.
Okay.
Right. So that's why when you hurt a muscle, like you tear something, or you get hit in it, it swells up. That's the body's natural mechanism to try to protect itself, to try to make it stiffen up, and I've always explained this to like parents, right? So say I put either one of you have a kid.
Yeah.
4.
Okay. So picture this. Okay. You're in either one of you are in the room with your kids,
Okay.
right? So now somebody releases a big 10-foot alligator in this room. Okay? What's gonna happen is you're probably gonna back up to a corner to try to protect your kids, right? And so I'm explaining that in layers. So your kids can feel your tightness and feel your fear, whatever like that. So what do they start? They start getting really tight. So now your kids are actually the muscle. You're actually mechanisms in the body that's trying to protect the muscle. So now I take that alligator out of the room. Okay, so I probably get one of you guys to relax first, and then you're turning around telling your kids, hey baby, it's okay. Hey sweetheart, it's the alligator is no longer in here. And so it's like, so now I'd say like that trauma is actually you trying to protect the kid, and your body's a lot like that. Trauma in terms of like we're talking about specifically about muscles. There's inflammation or different things that where the body's trying to protect itself. Yeah.
And then is breathing important with stretching?
Very. So going back to the nervous system, right, and going back to the most ancient and primal of times. Like, just in terms of, breathing. When you learn how to breathe, it regulates everything. Now they're teaching breathing and meditation classes to to kind of that's all tying into the nervous system. And also too, when I'm stretching someone at the table, right, and sometimes I'll see somebody kind of tighten up their face or whatever like that.
Yeah.
First thing I'm telling them to do is relax and breathe, because I'm trying to that breathing regulates the nervous system so that I can go deeper into stretches, and it makes it easier on both the client and the therapist. Yeah. Yeah.
So what would you say with stretching as far as, somebody that's in their 50s, they start stretching for the first time? Do you think that can help them as far as long-term longevity, as far as and wealth to life?
Well, you're looking at someone in their 50s, right?
Yeah.
So I'm 53. I'll be 54 in September.
Okay.
And so
Looking good.
Yeah. Thank you. And so with that being said, I would tell someone to start investing in stretching as early as they can. And I just go off the data, right? At 40 years old, every year we're not stretching, you start to lose 10% of your flexibility, right? Doesn't mean that you can never gain some of it back. But if you're never doing it, 41, 42, 43,
you start feeling it.
You start getting tighter. And also too, like I say, in just studying people's body, you'll start to see, people, just be like, going back to what you're saying about the computer, the phone, we start to lean in, and people, people's body are starting to curl up as opposed to standing up straight. I would tell someone to invest in it, and like I say, take baby steps. I don't expect someone to, be able to, have the flexibility of a ballet dancer. It's something. It's stretches. It's a practice. Whether it's yoga, assisted stretching. All type of different. There's so many different modalities. Pilates is a good stretching and strengthening. There's so many beautiful things out there to kind of assist you on your journey, to stretching. Yeah.
What's the one thing you wish people will know about their body?
The one thing I wish people would be hydration. Hydration. So it's estimated that a human body is 60 to 70% water, right? So if that's the case, and you don't have proper water in your system, you're brittle. Like, and then too, when you go to stretch, you can hurt yourself. And I have this. I got weird theories, but to me, this, even leaving outside of stretching with hydration, I have this theory that 90% of the world is walking around dehydrated. Yeah. Now, in saying that, and I don't want to scare people, but it's not that there's, it's not severe hydration where people can't talk or can't function. Mm-hmm. When you see like a person who's severely dehydrated, they can't talk, they can't function, they can't walk, they're falling over. But I have this theory that if all, like, even in school, I would argue that like a lot of kids are not hydrated. If kids were properly hydrated, they could listen and they could soak up things a lot better. But kids are a lot of times filled up with like a lot of sugary stuff that's almost helping dehydrate their body instead of getting water and electrolytes in their system. And and that, because if that brain is hydrated, the organs and with your muscles too are all hydrated, I think that your body functions a lot better.
You think that's by design? Conspiracy theory.
I just think it's another one of those things that just aren't taught. And then it's like I'm a parent, I'm guilty of it. You want your kids to like they're gonna like something sweet or something like that, or you're on a vacation and it's like and you give them all that, and then kids taste that, they're like, ooh,
yeah,
like forget about that plain tasting water, man. That that smoothie or that whatever tastes, or that slushy tastes really really good. So it's kind of it's something that could be emphasized more, I think.
Yeah, I know. My kids I don't give them soda, right?
Yeah,
they only drink water.
Yeah, I don't keep
and
soda.
And then somebody introduced soda to one of my kids. And they're like, ooh,
Yeah.
cola. So they know we don't
Yeah.
have that at home.
Yeah,
But now when we start
yeah.
going to party, they're like trying to grab the soda
yeah,
just to
yeah.
sneak away. And I have to capture them and take
Yeah.
that away. So you can't drink this.
Yeah.
This is not good for you. But
Yeah.
yeah, that first test, they got hooked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
No.
it's a drug.
Sugar is the biggest drug. Sugar is the most addicting thing in the world. You know, and it gets you off. It gets you off course. So no question.
Your body will tell you, hey, you need to go get that thing. And you're going to go out of your way when you're driving to stop to
get
that
it.
specific
Yeah.
store just to get
Yeah.
it. It is,
Yeah.
it is crazy.
I'm the Grinch at home, so they know.
I think it's just, I don't keep soda in the house.
Yeah.
So to me, I try not to keep it in the house, and so that it's an effort. You know, if you want it, it's like an effort to go get it, as opposed to just walk right into the pantry and just grab and start grabbing sugar. Yeah, exactly.
All you grandparents, I need to hold back on those sodas.
Yeah, the grandkids go. Hey, the grandkids. This almost like, I mean, the grandparents, they getting us back. You know, they're like, they come home. I'm gonna have a good time and then send them home to you.
So you're not just a therapist. You also teach the next generation, right?
Absolutely. So, you know, what I've realized, you know, in life is that I can't stretch everybody, right? And in order to quote unquote spread the gospel, you know, I have to train other therapists, right? And so, with that being said, you know, I've developed my own certification program, the neuromuscular connective stretch therapy, and so and then too in the class, there, you know, like I say, you don't only learn about muscles. Like, you know, to me, in my you know, maturation of stretching has a lot to do with the nervous system, has a lot to do with calming down that nervous system, and you know, even connective tissue, it's interwoven it's all through muscle, bones, ligaments, you know, tendons, and to me, it's an understanding that people need to, you know, that people need to have in order to become a great stretch therapist. But, you know, for me, I take pride in being the best. I want to train, you know, other people to do what I do. And you know, and it's fun. It's a very fun, rewarding, you know, career as well. And I can't touch everybody in Katy, let alone Houston, let alone the world. So in order to touch more people, I have to give away my gift in the form of a certification, so that others can help people as well.
Any idea how many stretch therapists we have in town right now?
I don't know. I would have. This number will probably sound high, but it's probably not. But for Houston, how dense Houston is.
Yeah.
But I bet now there's probably over 100 therapists.
100?
Yeah, but that sounds that sounds like because if you take, like, you know, I know that you know, there are franchises or different, you know, or other private people like myself. It's not as comparison to the massage therapists here. Like the massage therapists, there's multiple thousands, you know, and you know, and also too, you know, I like to recruit massage therapists because number one, they know a lot about the body, and also two, I find sometimes, you know, and I think some massage therapists would agree with me, they wear their hands and their forearms out, you know, massaging. Yeah. And this is an alternative to maybe break up the monotony of their day, or just learn, you know, or just add something to what they're currently doing with clients now.
So as far as with the certification, how many hours is it for?
So it's a 4-day certification, hands on. So we are. So this is not you know, where you're and nothing against it, but to me, I wanted to do this in person. I wanted to show people, let them feel it, let them stretch me, you know, critique it that way, and build people's confidence that way, as you know, as opposed to a whole bunch of written tests and anybody doing that. Look, I wanted to do something different. I think that the way I learn and the way people learn, you need to learn this hands on, so you can feel it. Yes.
So there's a market. That's what I like. The fact that you say there's about 100 people, that's not a lot. We have over 6 million people living in Houston. Could you imagine if you can take care just 10% of it?
For sure. And what is the cost for somebody that's interested in wanting to sign up?
So it's $2,100 to take certification. Okay. And I always tell people, and not that I'm going to try to sell people on, right now, but like a lot of people like, oh, $2,100, man, $2,100 can be made back in a matter of weeks, but I think that my training style is we're going to laugh, we're going to have fun, and we're going to correct things on the spot. It's not going to be like, you're terrible and you're failed. It's more so like we're, okay, do that again. Okay, now I want you to change this. I want you to feel this. And I want people to learn in that type of environment where, they're being coached hands-on right on the spot, as opposed to, they see just videos of me doing something and they learn from there, okay. Because the way I developed my certification, it's like it's years of trial and error. But for me, the first thing I thought was I want to make it more I want to make a client have the most beautiful experience in the world, right? So the first thing was client focus. The second part of this was therapist focus, right? Because you got to make sure therapist has the right mechanics and the right body movements and the things like that, so that they don't wear themselves out, right? Because a lot of times if you're not doing things properly with proper techniques and mechanics, your back is hurting, and your hip is hurting, your hands are hurting. And so I went from client focus to the therapist focus, and to me, I think I got something really special in that.
Cool.
How can people reach out to you if they would like to try your services?
So number one, you can go to my website, www. and I'll spell it out, rtofstretch.com. Okay. Also, too, if you look on the back of one of my trifolds here, okay, the business phone number 281-819-3968, and I would say probably those are, I guess I'm old school. A person can call me. I mean, a person can call me. I'm going to talk to you. A lot of times I'd rather talk because I can give you a better explanation than even what you might see in writing. So again, man, on the back side of here, it has the website information. It also has the phone number. Like I said, if someone wants to call just to inquire, who has questions or something like that, wants to get more knowledge about it, please reach out. I would love to talk. No question about it.
All right, guys. So y'all hear it. If your body is screaming like, help me, get me out of here. He's right here for you, okay? Yeah. Do not hesitate. We all want to live longer, looking good and healthy, and not having trouble moving around when we'll be in our 70s, okay? So be sure to call Ryan. He's here to help you. All his information are down below. Do not hesitate. You can call him, like you said. You can email him, and then you can go to his website. So now, if you want to book a session, go ahead and call him. Make sure to let us know, because we want to see and hear from you if you learn a lot. And then make sure to share this information with all friends and family. Stretching is not just a simple hobby. It's really for your life. Thank you so much for watching us, and we'll see you soon. À bientôt.
Thank you.
Came here in 2007, right in the middle of the crazy crisis. If your heart is not into it, do not do it. That's what I always tell them.
If you're making around $70K, look to be able to qualify for a home somewhere around $250, $275 in that bracket.
Onions and juices and all that, and put some lemon and onion, and you make him drink it, right?
And Alex, all my listings need a video. All of them.